Good morning. Well, good afternoon at this point. Let me just say that we are continuing to work through our flooding situation. Of course, the flooding started on Monday has been at historic proportions. It hasn't been this much water since our Hurricane Allison back in 2001. So we're all working through it, both the city as well as the county, and then there are 9 other counties as well. So it's been a major ordeal for all of us in the region. Again, I certainly want to extend my condolences to the families who have lost loved ones from this flooding, to all of the families, and we are praying for them. And then at the same time, I want to commend and certainly thank everyone, from volunteers, individuals, companies, corporations, nonprofit organizations, just all Houstonians and quite frankly, people in our region in Harris County, for literally stepping up. It has been and it continues to be a collective effort where people seeing a need, they're responding to needs. They're not asking to be called. People are calling, they're volunteering, or they're seeing a situation and they're responding to those situations, sometimes putting themselves in danger. And so I want to thank them on behalf of the city for their service and for their commitment and for their love for people. Now, when we have in situations of this kind, unfortunately, you'll always have some people who take advantage or want to take advantage of a situation. So again, I just want, especially to our seniors out there, be very, very careful when people come knocking at your door or handing out a card seeking to do contracting work. Please check them out before inviting them to your home or into your home or giving them your money. Just do make sure that they're reputable, ask for all identification, their licenses, confer with someone, talk to family members, especially to our seniors. Just because someone comes to you and says, you know, they are a contractor, they could be a fly-by-night contractor, could be unscrupulous. So just be on alert, because this is when people will try to take advantage. And then at the same time, for people who are tempted to raise their prices exorbitantly because of this situation, I just hope that does not happen. I hope people will exercise goodwill and not try to take advantage of these situations by engaging in price gouging. So those are some of the things that I simply want to bring attention to at the very beginning. Just a few comments. You know, there's still rain and more rain coming. Hopefully, we're not going to have a major situation because of it. So, you know, just again to remind everyone to be very cautious, that we're still not totally in the clear, especially in Houston. And I know with respect to outlying areas in the county, there's still depending on the amount of rain, they could certainly be adversely affected. So we're just praying for that we'll have a good outcomes, not just for the people in the city of Houston, but for everyone throughout our state. In terms of some priorities for me, is to make sure people, for example, who are in shelters in the city of Houston, hopefully we'll finalize our assessments today, and we'll get, and then we'll start trying to transition people into housing, temporary or permanent. And I know the Housing and Community Development, along with the Housing and City of Houston Housing Authority and others, are talking to the various apartment owners throughout the city, certainly on the north side, to try to locate available units to put people that can be used by people who are currently in our shelters. I want to thank, like the Houston Public Library. You may not think that they would play a vital role in terms of this flooding situation, but they have been taking, for example, books and other items over to the M.O. Campbell Center that's helping the kids and others kind of get through these times. So I certainly want to acknowledge their contribution. So 1 is to transition. 2 is on debris removal. And that will be taken, and that will have to take place all throughout the city because there was flooding throughout the city. So, for example, with respect to, let's say, the apartment complexes, and we have identified about 17 of them on the north side in the Greens Point area, thanks to waste management. In this particular case, they will be providing 2 roll-off containers at each one of those properties that we have already identified. And there are 17 of them, and these will be large containers, and they will be pulling those 3 times each. And to give you some idea what that means, that's the equivalent of placing more than 100 large dumpsters in those areas for people to, for their debris. So what we don't want to see happen is that, in the recovery phase, things start to stack up, and it just becomes unseemly. So I want to thank them for stepping up and offering to do that. With regards to other neighborhoods throughout the city, we are putting together a schedule for debris removal of heavy trash all throughout our areas, whether it's Spring Branch, whether it's the Milan area, whether it's any other parts of town. So that's taking place because we don't want the trash to stay piled up on the curb outside of people's home too long. So we want to move that as quickly as we can. We are also going to maintain our heavy trash schedule. So that is going to be maintained. And in fact, it will commence again as of tomorrow. So that's just a regular heavy trash schedule. That's going to be maintained. But in addition to that, we are putting together a schedule for heavy trash removal. So we're moving forward on that end. The other thing is that for helping people to recover, again, permitting, we're going to be setting up satellite offices or mobile permitting centers close to people's neighborhoods, try to make it as convenient for them and to get back on track. In terms of the emergency declaration or the disaster declaration, that's already everything that the state needs. They have provided, and I think they have sent that information up now to DC, and we're simply waiting for the approval on that end. As soon as that's done, then FEMA steps in, and then we can move forward. We are continuing to watch situations even in Northwest Houston. I think Councilmember Dave Martin spoke to his situation as it relates to Kingwood. I think we did get some good news. The releases on the dams is included in the flood estimates, and their projections are that the Cypress Creek has crested, Spring Creek has crested, and Barker and Addicks Reservoir releases are not to pose a downstream flooding risk. But I think all of that, again, assumes is dependent on the amount of rainfall that comes. So at least as of now, that's the situation. But again, I think the situation remains dynamic. And then to help coordinate, because there are things coming from different directions, and to help coordinate and move us forward, Bill Kelly, who has come on board as of yesterday as the Director of Governmental Affairs, and I've asked Bill to assume to be the coordinator for the recovery effort, to help coordinate and to serve as a point person so people will have someone to go to. He'll serve as a coordinator amongst all of the departments as well as externally as well. So he will step up. He's no stranger to it. Bill was around when Hurricane Katrina was there, and I think took an active role there. And so I've asked Bill Kelly to step up and be the coordinator as we move forward. There will be 2 information meetings today. One will be at 3 o'clock in the Greens Point area at Harvest Time Church. We'll be out there at 3 o'clock. And then the second one will also be tonight at 7 p.m. And that will be
Mark Twain Elementary School.
Mark Twain Elementary School at 7. Those are 2 information meetings. And then there will be a third in Northwest Houston, and that will be on Monday. And probably, I think we're planning on somewhere around Monday morning. I think that covers everything that I had that I was going to make mention of. Certainly, people can get more information if they sign up to CitizenNet at houstontx.gov/citizensnet. then they can get additional information on flood cleanup, debris removal, information on community meetings. So that's houstontx.gov/citizensnet. And then for people who want to contribute financially, and there have been a number of individuals and companies who have indicated a desire to do that, they can contribute to the Greater Houston Storm Relief Fund, the Greater Houston Storm Relief Fund, and their contributions will be very much appreciated. But I do want to thank all of the first responders, police, fire, public works, solid waste, everyone, all the first responders, all of the city employees for really stepping up in this time period because many of them have families as well. And they have really stepped up, and I really appreciate the work that they have done. And then let me stop and take whatever questions you may have.
So, Mayor, as you look back over the past couple of days, I'll let you, whatever Mr. Hayes has to say to you there. As you look back on the past couple of days, obviously we're in the middle of, still in the middle of this crisis.
Absolutely.
I wonder what lessons you've learned. I mean, have you looked at what the city has done in the past 48 or so hours and said, you know, we could have done this better, we should have done this?
I think, Doug, when you look at the situation, the rainfall has been at historic proportions. We haven't faced a situation since 2001. And the way I guess I choose to look at it is that it's been unfortunate that we've had some loss of life. Seven people have lost their life as a result of the flooding in the city as well as the county collectively. But I am so appreciative at at the actions and the spirit of so many people throughout the region. Houstonians have just stepped up. First responders have stepped up. City employees have stepped up. But even more importantly, individuals have volunteered. They saw a situation that needed to be attended to, and they didn't hesitate. They've stepped in. People have volunteered their time. I just can't say enough for people who have really risen to the moment when people were in a crisis state and offered service. So I think that's been a plus, because I don't think anyone anticipated that it was going to be this bad. I don't think any of the weather people anticipated it was going to be this bad. And I think even if, for example, if the weather people have anticipated it was going to be this bad, I think they would have added some more to their coverage heading into it. So it's one of those situations that I'm very thankful that people have responded, and now we need to help transfer people to the next level. But in terms of hindsight, we discussed it a little bit at the city council table. If we had more high water rescue vehicles, that would have been a plus. But then, for example, if we had, let's say we had 10 more, and you had flooding and this flooding happened all over the city. And so let's say if you had 10, and you were using all 10 on the north side of town, and there were situations occurring on the south side of town, I think the question would then be asked, what would you have done in hindsight? And so let's say if I said I needed 20, and if the flooding was even much more significant, and you used all of those 20 on the north side and on the south side, and then flooding occurred on the west side, then the question would be, could you have done much more? I think those are questions that will always take place. But I think the focus is, and what I'm thankful for, is that there were police officers and firefighters, even before the sun came up. They were out at 4 o'clock in the morning. And many of them left they left their families. They left their families to serve the general public. And I'm thankful for individuals who are not as city employees, who just recognized the need and they responded and even put themselves in harm's way. So I think this is one of those times where you're very grateful and thankful. And we can always Monday morning quarterback, but I would tell you, what purpose does that serve?
Mayor, I talked to folks out there at the Arbor Corps departments, and they're tired, and some of them are angry. They think the city should have done something faster. What do you say to those folks?
I think anybody who's in a moment of crisis and if you're not responding to them at that moment, they're going to be frustrated, and they're going to be angry. I think those are emotions that all of us can understand. Even, for example, you had Arbor Court, but right around in the same area, you also had City West Apartment, you had Park de Ville, you had Durham Apartments, and those people were many of them were evacuated, and they were placed at Greenspoint Mall. You had some that were told to go to the second floor. So if you're in a situation and you see the water rising, yeah, you're going to be anxious and you're going to be frustrated. I understand that, and you do the best you can at the moment in time. But the good news is that, look at it this way: no one lost their life there. Everybody there is safe. Were there anxious moments? Absolutely. Did anyone lose their life? No. I'm grateful for that. Would I have preferred to respond to them at the immediate moment of need? Absolutely. Absolutely. And do I apologize to anyone who believes that we didn't respond to them in time? Absolutely. I'm the CEO and manager of the city. Absolutely. But I'm also grateful that every person at Arbor Court has lived to see another day. They've lived to see another day. I mourn for people, for families, for those 7 families who did lose their lives. And so I choose to look at it from a point of view that if you are alive to see another day, and if someone from the city or if some volunteer or some individual did get to you in time, I'm grateful for that, and I'm thankful for that, you know. And you can be upset, and I understand the emotions, but also look around the city of Houston. I have seen senior citizens in living facilities that are being carried out from their homes, going someplace else. Okay? I've seen people who went to bed at night, and they've been awakened during the night, and there's water in their homes. So I certainly understand. I don't dismiss it. I don't dismiss it. But I also recognize that this was a rainfall of historic proportions. And it just didn't happen in one part of town. It occurred in the whole region.
And Mayor, speaking of historic proportions, there's
Yes.
been a lot of discussion about the last decade or two, the growth of the city, the lack of drainage,
Yes.
the quote-unquote runaway developers, and the fact that we've sort of paved our way out of any sort of into runoff. Is there any sort of systematic change or for the city that you see undertaking during your tenure that would actually make long-term changes?
I am always going to look for ways to mitigate flooding. So, and it is a top priority. And I intend to announce some steps to make it top priority. I was going to make some announcements at the State of the City address of a schedule for this Monday as it relates to flooding. So yeah, we will continue to look at ways to mitigate flooding, to reduce it. And it's going to take all the stakeholders at the table, as we have seen with what happened on Monday, unfolding as of today, is that it's not just, it's a regional issue, and it's going to take all the different partners sitting at the table. It's going to take developers, it's going to take tourist community, it's going to take the super neighborhoods, engineers, you name it, the business community, everyone sitting, Public Works, Harris County Flood Control District, Corps of Engineers, all sitting at the table to make it work. And I will make an announcement in an attempt to bring all of those entities to the table, and let's drill down and try to come up with some meaningful ways of working to mitigate flooding. I don't want to take the position you can never eliminate it completely, but we may be able to do some additional things to help mitigate it.
Do you think there's been too much unhindered development or unmanaged, not well-managed development to sort of cause? Because if you talk to some people, they're like, there's too many houses going up. You've heard all the arguments, too much concrete.
Right? Yeah, but you know, we have, the demographers are saying that over the next 15 years, we'll have 3 million more people coming into our region. People need places to live. Businesses, we want businesses to expand and grow. But I think we can be smart in how we move forward. What I intend to do is to assign the responsibility of coming up with of addressing flooding to a singular individual whose sole purpose will be to deal with the flooding issue.
Like a flood czar or something?
That announcement was scheduled to have been on Monday, but that announcement is forthcoming, and that was even before this flooding incident happened. I said very early on in my administration that flooding would be a very high priority. If flooding continues to be a very high priority. What has happened recently only accentuates the importance of moving on it and moving in an expeditious fashion. So I intend to do that and give that person the sole responsibility of pulling together all the different stakeholders and coming up with a definitive plan on how to address flooding in the city of Houston.
So, Mayor, is this something we just have to learn to live with in Houston? It sounds like you're thinking there's something we can do to mitigate these problems. Am I right? You're thinking there might be something we can do to lessen these problems in the future? And if so, what would that be?
I'm still convinced that there are things that we can do to help mitigate it. I mean, just for example, like Project Braze in the Maryland area. Project Braze has been on the books. It's been delayed to 21, 22. And since Monday, I've had conversations with some of the congressional leaders, saying we need this project to speed up. Okay? And I've talked to them since Monday. Saying, this is a project that needs to move forward. I think we need to look at more retention, and whether it's regional, however you want to look at it, I think we need to look at it. And the purpose of naming someone whose sole responsibility will be to look at it, assess it, talk, bring to the table the various stakeholders, and design a blueprint to put us in the best position to address it. That's what I intend to do, and I intend to do that in short order. And I intended to do it, scheduled to do it on Monday at the State of the City, but of course that was delayed.
So you got somebody picked out already?
I have someone in mind.
Keep him in your pocket.
You can tell us who he is if you want.
Yeah, if you want to. What you say?
All right, okay. I should come a little bit closer so I can tell you.
Related to the mitigation projects, there were about a half dozen CIP drainage projects on today's agenda that had been previously planned in ordinary course. Do you know at this point whether any or all of those will have to be revised because of what has happened?
Well, what we voted on today were pre-engineering projects for future projects. So that was already planned and scheduled. We'll continue to move forward. But there's no question that flooding has to be and will be, with me, a top priority. And I think we just need to move as expeditiously as we can to address it. I can't think of, let me just say this, I can't think of anything that I could have done between the time I came in to this point that would have had any impact on what occurred on Monday.
What are you going to do, like this afternoon, 3 and 7, for the folks?
Those are informational meetings. I know when I was, for example, when I was out in the Greenspoint area on Monday, there were some people who elected not to go to the shelter. But they did ask, for example, if there was going to be some meeting where we could come and talk to them and kind of hear their concerns and provide them with any information that we may have. Instead of waiting until next week, I've elected to talk with people sooner rather than later, and it's to provide information as to what we have right now. Everything is dynamic. Everything will be constantly fluid. And then, of course, when FEMA is on the ground, then we'll have even more information to provide.
Are they going to be in, are some of these folks already in new apartments, or is that like, do you have a timeline for that?
My goal is to have people out of the shelters and into some sort of housing soon. What I told my executive committee, I just don't want, I would not like to have anybody in shelters past the next few days.
As far as you're concerned, I'm just wondering, just double checking, there's not real active flooding in the city today, right? It's all in the county as far as you guys have seen?
My understanding is that, well, Kingwood. Yeah, I'm watching Kingwood very, very carefully. And I'm working very closely with Councilmember Dave Martin. So we're watching that situation. And again, a lot will depend on the rainfall that takes place. But in terms of the release of water into the Gulf, we're releasing more than's coming into that area right now. If that stays the same, I think we'll be okay. But that situation has to be monitored very, very closely.
Mayor, you mentioned detention a second ago. As you look forward on flooding mitigation, from what you know so far, does it seem more like you need to focus on changing the way the city invests its money in that area, such as detention, or does it have more to do with changing the city's rules for development on the front end?
You know, I think, Mike, I think the approach has to be much more comprehensive and holistic. I don't think there's any one thing, and I think that's why it's important to name someone whose sole purpose will be to focus just on flooding, where you can look at all aspects. I would say I anticipate that person will also be working with a task force that we'll put together and that will be working with this particular person as well. And that task force persons on that will be other engineers even from outside the city of Houston. And let me just say, there have been a number of people who have stepped up already. Key players and engineers in our city who have even asked to be a part of that task force. So I think everything needs to be on the table because, what you do in one area impacts another. What happens on one part of town impacts people down below. What happens on the north end, just like with Tour 17, can impact people on the south end. So there are so many different components that you almost have to bring everyone to the table. But what I have discovered since I've been here, and I think what will work best for the people in the city of Houston and the region, is that person needs to come from out of public works, okay? And it needs to be a standalone individual whose sole purpose will not be on, preparing potholes or panel replacements or just permitting, but whose sole focus will be on flooding. And that's what I intend to do.
So, Mayor, there was obviously voters a couple of years ago passed, I believe it was a $140 million bond issue regarding parks. I'll wait for your press person to talk to you there. Okay.
Okay, and what I'm being told, there's an active removal right now, for example, for people in that Kingwood area. I think Forest Cove, Kingwood area. They don't have water in their homes, but I think they may be anticipating that water may be moving in that direction. And so that's taking place right now. So we're very carefully, we're monitoring that Kingwood area very, very closely.
Voluntary evacuation, is that what,
Yes,
okay.
Voluntary.
I was about to ask you about a couple of years ago, the voters passed it was a $166 million parks bond issue. Are you thinking green space? Would that somehow help out on this? Is there
Green space always helps, and I'm a strong proponent of more green space and parks within our city. So that's, that helps. The more cement, of course, you have on the ground, the faster water will run. But I just think we need to take a very holistic approach. I don't think any of us can lose sight that what happened on Monday was of historic nature. I don't think we can lose sight of that. That was a lot of rain that came down, and the water is still falling. So we'll just have to continue to work through it. But what's important to people who have already been adversely impacted is getting them back on the road to recovery. And when people have been, this is their second time or more flooding, and for some people who just went through Memorial Day flood and they had their house repaired and they stayed out of it, and then all of a sudden here we go again, you can only imagine what's going through their minds and how they feel, and I'm very sensitive to that.
Mayor, one of our reporters, when he went to Greenspoint Mall on Monday, he saw several firefighters just hanging out kind of for a long time instead of helping. I was wondering if you know anything about maybe a lack of coordination that happened there.
Let me tell you, I'm very proud of every one of those firefighters that were out there. I went out there personally myself. There were police officers and firefighters who had been out there since 4 a.m. in the morning. Okay, and they had safely removed people from 3 of the apartment complexes, and they were still out there working to assist others. And these are all individuals who left their own families. So I'm very proud of the first responders. I'm very proud of that. You don't want anybody to be stranded. Absolutely not. And again, when people are in crisis, I certainly understand their concerns. They want to be put in a safe environment. So I got that. So I'm not even disagreeing or upset when anyone who feels as though we didn't get to them early enough, because I wasn't in their shoes, and I understand that. I'm just glad that they're safe. And quite frankly, if they're able to say we didn't get to them fast enough, and I'm glad that they're safe enough to be able to say that today, okay? Because the opposite side could have been, the flip side of that could be something else.
How do you feel about the cooperation between the city with maybe other cities around here and the county?
The county and the city works very well together. I mean, County Judge Emmett and I were talking every morning at about 6 o'clock in the morning, if not sooner. And he and I text each other back and forth. But the cooperation between the city and the county couldn't be better. The commissioners have been outstanding in terms of their work and their assistance. So the relationship between the county and the city is great, and no criticism at all.
Mayor, I had to, do you have a follow-up?
No.
Okay, I have two non-flooding questions, if anybody was...
I do have a flooding question.
Go for it.
I talked to some people that told me that their cars were towed after they tried to save them from being flooded, because as you know, a lot of cars were flooded, and they put them up on, on a highway, on an elevated area, and they were towed. And they're wondering if there's any way to get their towing fee waived. What are your thoughts on that?
Let me take a look at it again. I hope no one is taken advantage of. I don't want that to happen. But these are private companies, private businesses. But we'll certainly take a look at it. I don't know if there's any.
There's really nothing. It's a private contract. I mean, these are private tow companies. We can ask and certainly reach out to them, but we have no way to force them to free tow.
I can only hope that and ask that people recognize that people abandon their cars not because they wanted to, but because they were trying to seek a safe venue. And hopefully that people's vehicles will not now be towed and then charged $240 or whatever that amount may be. I hope people will just be sensitive. The business community has stepped up in a major way, so I'm very appreciative to their contributions. Just like Waste Manager off the bat, $50,000 for these dumpsters.
It's in addition to that's to the storm relief fund.
Oh, to the storm relief fund. Oh, okay. So they provided over the equivalent of over 100 dumpsters, and then another $50,000 to the storm relief fund. So we'll take a look into it.
Mayor, could you explain just a little bit more about the storm relief fund in detail?
Essentially, I mean, there are a lot of needs that are out there. I mean, can you imagine? You can provide a place for people to live, but if they lost everything and they were living from paycheck to paycheck, they still need a mattress, or they may need clothing. I saw some, for example, at the shelter. They left and had children. Children didn't even have on shoes. So there are many other needs out there. Just giving a person a place to stay, and if they don't have anything else, so where are they? Some people, there may not be a place for them to a housing unit. They possibly may need to go to some hotel in the short term. I mean, there are a number of different needs that are out there, and I think this helps with kind of getting people back on their on track.
But what more can people do who want to help?
People are giving water. I think there are 4 identifiable drop stations. I don't have the locations right in front of me, but there are 4 identifiable drop stations. Non-perishable items, toiletries, Pampers, clothes for children as well as adults. All of those type of items are beneficial. Non-perishable food items, but again, if you're being placed in a unit and you don't have the ability to something to eat with, I mean, and utensils, all those things people are in need of, all of the essentials. Just put yourself in the position of being out of your home and you don't have, you know, anything else, and what you would need in order to get yourself back on track. Okay, and again, and many of these individuals, they're just not asking for a handout. I mean, they're just wanting the assistance to get back. And we want to treat everyone with dignity and respect. Okay.
Mayor, on the budget question.
Yes.
What contributed to the decision in the proposal that you talked about on Friday to eliminate the solid waste sponsorship agreements or that permit?
A budgetary shortfall of $160 million in trying to balance the budget. This was something that was put in place in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken, for, let's say, for certain neighborhoods who may not have wanted the city's pickup, and they wanted their trash to be picked up, let's say, twice a month, and they wanted it from the back door. So this was like a sponsorship. I think on average, we're paying people like $6 a month for it. It's a sponsorship. And I've said to everyone, to city council members, to TERS, to employee groups, shared sacrifice. This is a part of the shared sacrifice. Were it not for the $160 million shortfall, I would not have put it on the table.
And the council members who represent the areas where most of those agreements are in place are concerned that the city may actually wind up costing itself more because neighborhood groups may elect to cancel their contracts with the private vendor, and that would force the city to come pick up the trash. Are you concerned that the cost could ultimately go up as a result of that?
Well, we can have that conversation, but you know, some of the areas that are getting the sponsorship, they just take a look at some of the areas that are getting the sponsorship.
I mean, could you elaborate on that a little bit?
No, I mean, you know, Mike, let's put it this way. If anybody's service would be hurt by not getting that $6 a month, then I would myself remove it as an item, and we'll find some other place to find the money. If any neighborhood, for example, that's getting it, if they are saying to me, if city council members are saying to me, but for this $6 that they can't make it, I got that and I understand it. I don't want their sacrifice to be greater if it doesn't have to be. So I don't want them to be put in a very stressful situation.
My question was actually more on the city side. If an HOA, because they're not getting the payment anymore, says, well, we just won't hire this private company, we'll cancel that, and then the city will come pick up our trash, and the city will have to pay more to come pick up their trash.
If they end up saying that to me, Mike, and saying that this is that big of a difference that they will give up their contract and will turn to the city, then yeah, okay, more than likely I'll remove it. I'm not trying to make their situation bad. I'm simply trying to balance a budget that's $160 million short, and I've asked people to engage in shared sacrifice. And quite frankly, when I drilled down in every department and every line item, and I saw that item sticking out, my question was, you know, is this one that people can give up without hurting them and the core services on things that are essential to the city? And I decided that this was something that the city, at this particular point in time, was not in a position to continue to sponsor. It's at a cost of $3.5 million. But if there are neighborhoods that are receiving it, and if they're saying to me, it is so important that if you take it away, then yeah, we're going to turn to your city service and end up costing us more, absolutely. Then I will drop it and we'll find some other place to get the money. I'm not trying to be burdensome or trying to be hurtful, but when you're dealing with $160 million shortfall, you have to balance your costs. And I took a look at it, and I thought this was one that would be the least stressful on the people that would not be receiving the sponsorship, as well as the overall Houston community. And that's how I made that decision. But if people want to push back on it and say, Mayor, we can't afford not getting that for this particular neighborhood, then fine. Then I myself will pull it down. But take a look at those who are getting it. Did I cover everything? I want to make sure I covered everything. Did I cover everything?
You better leave before you think
Oh.
something else, Mayor.
Oh, we all.
It's Doug's last council meeting.
Oh, and one last thing. I want to make sure. Have I covered everything? All the questions I answered?
Do we have any idea how many people?
I knew I should ask that question.
I
Go
only
to-
have one more. Do we have any idea how many people in total were affected in Greens Point and in the other areas?
And yeah, those numbers, we're still looking at those numbers. Yeah, we're still making those assessments. Even Dunn is out today in other areas. We're still making that assessment. So I really don't know the answer to that. Okay. Have I answered everybody's question to your full satisfaction? And are we all good? We all happy? You know? Okay, having said all of that, Doug, this is your last day covering City Hall and the news in the city of Houston. And so, look, on behalf of the entire city of Houston, and as mayor and CEO of the city of Houston, let me thank you for your long and stellar career.
Thank you,
You
Mayor.
have done an excellent job.
Thank you very much.
You've been a tremendous asset not only to Channel 11, but you've been a tremendous asset to the city of Houston. So thank you, man, and
Thank you,
Godspeed
Mayor.
to you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, now we're going to